Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Today, I will be sharing my budget tips and the budget spreadsheet that I've used and developed over the last 4 years to achieve personal financial freedom. So if you are looking to buy the house, buy the car, start the business, start the family, and you don't know where to start financially, this video is for you. And before we get into the tutorial, I do want to go over 4 things that I think are essential to having a successful budget journey. Number 1, discipline. I think it is way easier to spend money than it is to make and save money, so you definitely want to have discipline going into this. Number 2 are your SMART goals. You want to also have those ready because we're going to build them into your 12-month forecast, and I'll explain more about that later. But just to give you an example of a SMART goal, if it is your goal to be in a brand new house, you want to give that goal a deadline. So make it your goal to be in a brand new house by the end of 2022. Number 3 are your accounts. I recommend you having 3 checking accounts and 2 saving accounts just to kind of help you keep your money organized throughout the entire year. And I also recommend going through a credit union just because they usually don't require you to have a minimum balance in any of your accounts, and they're usually also free. Last but not least is grace. And I say grace because the truth of the matter is your finances may not always look the way that you want them to look. So from where you are now to where you are trying to be, don't forget to show yourself some grace, and also don't forget to trust the process. So those are the 4 things that I think are essential to having a successful budget. Now let's get into the tutorial. So I'm going to show you my method of saving in real life. Here's what the budget looks like once you have it open. You are going to need Excel to open the file. This is a budget with a 12-month forecast. Typically, you want to have this filled in at the very start of the year because you move different when you know exactly how your money is moving, especially for the entire year. And you can base a lot of your financial decisions around this budget. For example, once you have this filled in, you'll be able to determine whether or not this is the year you can afford to take 2 vacations. Maybe you have to cut back and only take 1 vacation so you can put the rest of that money towards a down payment for a house. Whatever the case may be, you'll be able to determine all of that once you have this filled out. Also, as a side note, I just want to say, if you want something that doesn't require this level of granularity, I totally understand and suggest you using a budget app like Mint, for example, just to start with, and then coming back to this once you feel comfortable. But I personally think it takes an extreme level of detail and strategy if your goal is to build generational wealth. So until you can afford to hire an accountant, I'll show you how to hold every penny accountable. Now let's talk about inputting information. There are 6 steps or areas you're going to want to put your information in or pay attention to. The first is your start date, which you're going to want to fall on a day that you get paid. So for example, if you get paid on the 9th in January, that's your first pay date. That's what you want that date to be set at. If it's the 1st, we're going to keep it at the 1st. So the second area is your payment schedule. So here you're going to want to select whether you get paid weekly or bi-weekly. So, and you'll notice that depending on what you select, these dates across the top will change. So we're just going to switch it back to weekly to keep it cute. And the third is going to be these expense groups over here to the left. So I already have a list of items for you to use as an example. So feel free to delete or modify whatever you need. So if you don't pay gas, you may not need that line. You can delete it. If not, you can keep it there. Whatever your case may be, feel free to personalize that. The 4th area is going to be you inputting your numbers. So your income, your expenses, and finally, you're going to want to build in your house saving goals. So say you're looking to buy a house and you know the down payment / closing costs / earnest money deposit is going to be around $18K. Damn! You're going to want to break that number down and build it into your forecast month by month. So I'm going to fill this in really quickly based on 2 streams of income that are around $50K after taxes, just so you have an example. And you'll notice that all the groups that are noted as expenses will be entered as negative numbers. So just watch, I'm going to speed through this. So now on to step number 5. So once you have all of your numbers entered for the month of January, for example, you are going to want to enter in your savings goal for that month here at the top, just to help keep you on track, right? So every single month you can look back and say, hey, I saved this much in January, boom, I saved this much in February, etc. So if we come down here, we're going to look at our savings / long-term savings group here, and we're just going to total everything up. So it looks like for the month of January, we are forecasting to save around $4,325. So we're going to enter that number here. Okay. Oh, except for it's not negative, it's actually positive up here. So that is step number 5. Step number 6. So once you have all this filled in for January, right, you're going to do that for each and every single month. And your months may not look the same. You know, in some months you'll be able to follow the 20, 30, 50 rule. And other months, just being realistic, it may not look like that. So you kind of have to make this strategy realistic to your lifestyle, to be honest with you. So once you have everything filled in, your budget may look something like this, right? So step number 6, I like to call this the decision-making step. For example, I don't know what else to call it, so we're just going to call it that. Your decision-making step is when you come all the way over to this total line here, because this is where you're going to find a lot of answers to your questions like, can I afford to buy the house? So what you want to do is you're going to want to look at what you have been putting aside. So again, on these 3 lines right here, the long-term savings group, you can see that over a 12-month period, you were able to put aside $18K, just about almost $19K, for you to put on a down payment on a house. So you can then say, can I afford to buy this house this year? Your answer is yes. Or maybe you want to keep on saving and building and maybe buy the house in 2022. So again, this is your tell all. Your answers to your questions are always going to be in your total lines. Once you have your forecast mapped out for the year, you've made your adjustments and you've built in your goals, we're going to move to our final step, which is your weekly / bi-weekly actions. So at the beginning of the video, I recommended having a minimum of 3 checking accounts and 2 saving accounts. And that's because every single week that you get paid, you want to move your money to the proper account. So just going off of this example, once the first rolls around, you'll transfer $500 for rent, $200 for your car note, and everything else that you have scheduled that typically gets paid on a monthly basis or hits that week to checkings number 1, which you'll see here. Everything in this group here should be mapped to checkings number 1. From there, you can either pay those bills right away from that account, or you can set up auto pay to hit that account for those particular bills, or set it aside to pay next week when those bills are actually due. So moving on to checkings number 2, that is your spending limit for the week. So in this example, between groceries and date night, you have a budget of $300 that you're going to transfer to checkings number 2. And you want to make sure that that $300 stretches you until the next week. So it is your responsibility to make that budget work. And lastly, checkings number 3, that is just the account that you house your paycheck. So anything that you have on direct deposit, that you want to have mapped to checking number 3. And any money that you have left over after you've done your transfers, that money can just sit there for you to use. If you want to go shopping with it, you can, or if you don't have anything to do with the money, you can just roll it over into your savings. Okay, so moving on to the transfers for the savings accounts. So it looks like for this first week in January, you would transfer $200 over to your long-term savings, and you actually have nothing planned to be transferred into your short-term savings accounts. So once you have everything transferred and all your bills paid for this month, feel free to highlight this column just to kind of help you keep track of what has been paid versus what still needs to be paid this month. So at the end of the month, your budget may look something like this. And your savings account should look something like $4,325 if you were able to forecast your variable expenses the right way and stick to your targets. So say you were able to, for example, stick to this budget or a budget similar to this for 12 months, you would have close to $40,000 sitting in your savings account, hence the 40K challenge. And if a 40K challenge feels overwhelming for you, feel free to personalize this based on your current income. I just want you to get into the habit or the mindset of shooting for big numbers. So if your income currently only supports a 10K challenge right now, build in 10K into your budget. If you have a high income and you actually want to shoot for 70K, shoot for 70K. It's better to go big than to kind of underestimate what you can save that year, because things don't always go as planned. So just remember that your ability to stick to your weekly or bi-weekly transfers is really going to determine the success of you reaching the goals that you have built into this budget.